Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the 22. I'm your host, Glenn Davis, as always. Tonight we have a conversation with Brent Turner, who's been on the show before. And Brent is an advocate of open source voting, which he will explain to you all who haven't heard the conversation of open source voting and what that is. He's also the manager of the Thrashers, an exciting young rock band. And when I say young, I mean young. They are of a youthful age, and we'll talk to Brent about that as well. And maybe meander on about the recent election. So let's welcome Brent Turner in now. Brent, good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you?
I am good.
Thanks for having me down.
Good. Oh, always.
Thank you.
It's actually been a little too long, don't you think?
It has been. I'm glad to see you.
Yeah. So, we just got through the elections. You've always been a strong advocate of open source voting, which I think is a more open process, if I recall correctly, of what people can expect when they submit their vote, their ballot. They know exactly what they've submitted has been turned in, and that everything is transparent.
Correct.
And essentially legal. Is that a nutshell of that?
That is a nutshell of that. We, strive to see better systems implemented. We've demonstrated here in San Francisco and in other places throughout the state, predominantly. What we advocate is better systems. They are transparent to the extent that the voter has the experience of witnessing their perfectly printed paper ballot. And we advocate precinct counts and transparency throughout the system, including open source software code.
From my perspective, the danger in what has come out of that is that accountability has really been thrust on the private sector. That we've entrusted organizations and corporations like Diebold into counting and having oversight over our ballots in many places. Is that sort of an issue, or am I sort of misplaced or misguided in that thought?
No, I think that is the essence of the issue, is that currently we're in the hands of vendors, and what happens is there'll be vendor-trained workers that come into the election departments, and they are the ones that really understand the systems that they're working with. The technology has gone past the capability of the elections departments. So they are in this position of relying on the vendor-trained assistants to tender the count. And the true issue is the public is not privy to the software code that is tendering the final count. So if we wanted to subpoena that code, take a look at that code, we couldn't do it. Now there is talk now, after years of people advocating open source and transparency, there's talk of disclosing code. There's talk of someday in the future vendors going open source. There's now groups that have popped up saying, using the words open source, but really talking about a licensed version, which is not up to standard for what we're talking about when we say transparency. Of course, we advocate the ballot printer system, so
Right.
you have a perfect paper ballot and no voter intent issues.
Right. Is Contra Costa or Alameda or San Mateo counties doing anything like that?
Well,
To your knowledge?
certainly they are aware of the open source issue. They move slowly. They're entrenched in these contracts, and
Right.
when they come up, they come up. But we're also looking to, obviously, now we're going to have Kamala Harris as the Attorney General.
By the skin of her chinny chin chin, as they say. Right?
Well, we don't know how wide those margins were. No, yeah,
Right.
I'm just glad to see her there.
Yeah.
Jerry Brown is the governor. That's a big deal. Secretary of State Bowen will now have some support and maybe be able to expedite as we encourage her to do.
Right. And really get open source voting done. Where can people go to find out more about open source voting? Do you have a website that they could?
There is a group, the Open Voting Consortium. Their website is www.openvoting.org, and that is the good authority regarding these matters. The founder, Alan Deckert, has dedicated his life to this issue, and I consider him a great person for doing it. It's a very tough road, as I'm sure you can imagine,
Yeah.
and we just keep going.
Right on.